very much, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening. Tonight, we'll be holding a meeting, Board of Education, followed by the adoption of the budget for next year. So if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance in a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And thank you. Okay, first we'll entertain any public comment. Very well then, thank you very much for your comments. Okay, moving on for discussion and possible action, Exhibit A. I need a motion to approve Exhibit A, personnel, certified, non-certified appointments, resignations, and leaves of absence as of January 24, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
And do we have any discussion? Sensing none, those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Monthly reports. I need a motion to approve monthly reports, budget position dated December 31, 2017, purchase resolution D-706, and request for budget transfers.
Move it.
Second.
And any discussion? Okay, Wendy, and then JT.
101, purchase D706, please. The legal hearing expulsion piece, is that tied to our retainer? Or how does this fit in?
So when we use, no, it's not tied.
Okay.
Our retainer is with the primary law firm.
Correct?
When we have a hearing officer, the hearing officer oversees, and actually even when they don't, the administration is represented by a third party, so there's no
This is the
conflict there.
admin's piece,
This is the admin.
not the board's piece.
That's correct.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
JT?
Two questions. Kind of a follow-up from last night. The salaries line there, very top line,
Yep.
and the budget position. Anthony, I see a balance there, so we've encumbered, again, we talked about this a little bit last night. We've encumbered, but there are still some vacancies out there. I'm just curious how many vacancies we have and how that might, that 546, how that might move.
Out of that 546 right now tonight on the transfer report is moving out $30,000 of those funds. And then,
Right.
okay, so there, Ms. Baldell was telling me the 3 vacancies that we have here in addition to that, that would have to be backed out of that 546
Right.
number.
And the transfer of the 30,000 is because we don't have a school psychologist. We haven't been able to fill that position, and so we're contracting services out. So we're moving money from the salary line to the professional services line so we can cover the salary of the contracted psychologist.
Any
Although the
fur-
line is still healthy, it's fluid.
Any further discussion? Those in favor? Oh, well, okay.
Sorry, I had one
You did have a
other, I had one other.
Okay,
I had two. Sorry.
very well.
I might have snuck two in there. No, I just see the magnet school tuition, 18 seats.
Yep.
Are we using all 18? Because last I heard we had 17, but do we have to pay for all 18 if we don't use them all?
Correct.
Yes.
We have
Yep.
to pay for, we have guaranteed 18, we
Thank
have
you.
17.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, David.
Can I piggyback off that?
Absolutely.
How do we advertise that? Does something go out to the K through 5, or how did?
There's a couple different ways it gets advertised. It comes from the magnet school themselves. We send something out, and then I think that the magnet school puts it in the paper as well. But I have to double check.
Because like right now is when they're doing that, right?
The lottery?
Yeah.
I don't remember, I think, maybe it's coming up. I want to say maybe next month or the month after.
Okay, because I mean, if we're paying for 18 seats, I would like to see 18 seats full.
Yes. The challenge, I would say, is that they don't always have, like, our 18 seats are not all in kindergarten. So if a seat opens like in third grade.
Got it.
A parent may not want to start the school
Right.
in third grade and
Okay.
finish in fifth.
That makes
So
sense.
that's
That
a
makes-
challenge.
okay.
Let me check on how we advertise though.
Anything further? Okay. Those in favor? Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. I need a motion to amend the agenda by adding the following items. Discussion vote on motion to rescind board action taken at the July 18th, 2017 meeting requesting that the end-of-the-year balance for 2017, subject to final audit, go to capital reserve. And discussion vote on use of surplus 2017 board funds by the town.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have an opportunity for discussion. Joe?
I believe we're all fully aware what the state of Connecticut has done to not only our town, but towns throughout the United States.
That'd be pretty tricky, but
And it has put all these towns and cities in a very difficult position. The town of Milford to attempt to address almost a $2.3 million issue. I think since we are such a big part of the town of Milford at the Board of Education, that what little we can do to assist in that fashion and help address this town's issues speaks volume. It's a little under $200,000, and I would fully support us doing what we can to help our community. We are not only the Board of Education, but we're the town of Milford.
thank you.
I think we should save our comments for when we,
Okay, I'm going to defer to the parliamentarian right now.
I think we should amend the agenda.
And then we can have our,
and
this is for the
discussion.
I'll
amendment.
take
But
that all
no,
back
no,
and I'll say it
it's-
again.
No, that was very good.
No, it's,
We're gonna do a videotape replay when you're
it's all good, I just didn't want to
This is
encourage
to amend
further
our,
discussion.
the agenda. Okay? Any further discussion? Those in favor? Those in favor? Okay. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to rescind the motion and board action taken at the July 18, 2017 meeting requesting that the end-of-the-year balance for 2017, subject to final audit, go to capital reserve.
So moved.
I'll second, or
Go ahead.
seconded. And again, we have an opportunity for discussion. Mr. Fela, if you can repeat that, but otherwise it is in the record.
I think everybody heard me. It's
Any
our
other,
part to help this community.
yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I agree with Joe. I mean, we should do something. My concern is, has there been any discussion about the rest of the cut on how that's gonna be?
I'm going to defer to the
Okay.
parliamentarian.
I think that because this has to do with our end-of-the-year balance, we can tie a little bit of it. By bringing out why this is actually on the agenda will help the public and the board members get a little bit more information. But basically, as you know, as we all know, that there's a deficit that needs to be, it needs to be identified, and we need to fill that deficit by June of 2018. And so we've been collaboratively working with the town, and when there came up with an option for us to pool our resources and identify an immediate dollar amount to close that gap, the capital reserve, our end-of-the-year balance before this falls to the bottom line, is being identified to help put into that fund. So the board took a full action on this, therefore we can't just do it. We explained to the town council that we need to rescind that motion and make a clean motion to turn it over to the town. There are, that will leave approximately $700,000 in which we are actively working on and where we're going to go with that.
Okay.
Yes, I can assure you that there have been ongoing meetings between the town, the mayor, Board of Finance, et cetera. And this is something that we can pinpoint. I will say, I'm hesitant to use capital reserve, but under the
Right.
circumstances, I don't see any alternative at this time.
Thank you.
Tammy?
Just a point of clarification, this is the capital reserve from the previous year, what we already, the auditors have already said that we have. Is there,
16, 17, the
16,
17-year
17.
balance.
is there any understanding, have there been any further discussions about any money that may be left over from this year?
Well, we can't really, again, we're tying it into the
talked about this
motion here.
motion.
This is tied to
Yeah.
the specific year
Yeah,
balance, so
yeah.
I feel more comfortable. I think that
Yeah.
in the overall budgetary discussion, that some of that conversation may be
Yeah.
able to come about, but this is tied
Yeah.
to the year-end balance of,
Yeah.
That just
you know,
ended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Those in favor? Okay, and if you'll bear with me, I need a motion to request and authorize the town to use the funds from the end-of-the-year
That's right.
balance for 2017 as reflected in the final audit to cover any budgetary shortfalls resulting from reduced state aid, grants, and revenue during the 2017-18 fiscal year. I'll move that.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Point of clarification, that plan or that plan in motion was also approved by the Board of Finance.
It was approved by the Board of Finance as well as the Town Council.
Thank you.
This is, yes.
Just answers my question.
Any other discussion? Those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Okay, at this point, we'll move on to the adoption. I need a motion to approve the superintendent's proposed 2018-19 budget in the amount of $64,437,522.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
And discussion.
Are you opening it up to amendments?
I will be opening it up for amendments. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Is it okay if I begin with amendments?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll start with the, I hope, what would be the obvious.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to amend the proposed superintendent's budget in the amount of $94,886, coming out of BAZ 25043 for the workman's compensation as so presented to the board.
So
I'll
moved.
Okay, I'll second it. Any discussion?
Can you just repeat the BAZ number?
It's BAZ 2504, I believe.
Thank you.
043, I beg your pardon. Object code 52900. You're welcome.
Any discussion? Those in favor? Thank you. Any, I'll open it up to further amendments. JT?
Wendy, do you want to go?
No, I was going to do liability.
Yeah, you do that.
All right. I will make a motion to amend the budget and reduce it in the amount of $28,966, BAZ 259403, 55200 for the liability and auto and property insurance as so presented to the board.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor? And that's unanimous, thank you. Any further amendments? Oh, JT, sorry.
JT, you ready?
Thank you, David. Just for context, page 68,
Mhm.
under Doga here. I'd like to make a motion to amend superintendent's proposed budget by $20,000 in line BAZ 23143, object code 53200, again, in the amount of $20,000. And my assumption is that's for the strategic plan. And one thought being, to share this with the board, We've made some good.
I'll allow you to speak to your motion.
Oh, oh, thank you.
He needs to be
Oh, sorry.
seconded.
It needs to be seconded.
I'll second it.
Seconded? Okay,
Sorry.
discussion, and you'd like to speak to your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
So for context, I think, as a board, we've made some good headway with some of the work we've done this summer, our theories of action, that we've worked with the superintendent on. I think we've got a good opportunity organically to make some good headway on some of these initiatives. Having worked on that strategic plan many years back, I think we can actually do it better internally, so that would be why I'm proposing this amendment. Thank you, David.
Any further discussion?
Well, I can cross that off my list.
Way to beat her to it, JP.
Those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay.
Entertain. Eileen?
I'd like to make a amendment to the proposed budget on page 39, number 55101, to remove $15,000 from the field trip line.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Tammy?
I would like to speak to this as somebody who's very involved with the PTOs here in our district. And while I love the idea of incorporating field trips into the budget, what I have been led to believe, and Alicia and Josh, you can, tell me if I am wrong, that administering this money has been not without its challenges to the administration of the schools and to the district. Furthermore, a lot of this money, in the way that it's distributed through K through 5, has not left a lot of money for grades. So it's either parents are still picking up a cost to send their kids on the field trip for this extra money, or they're trying to find ways for the PTO to supplement it without supplanting the budget, which has really created some issues. Furthermore, in better days, and hopefully down the road we will have better days where we might be able to add these back into the budget, K through 5 schools predominantly have less of a challenge raising money, and I'm sure that Angie can speak to this as well, because there's younger parents. Parents are more home with their kids. They are able to, they're gung-ho, they want to raise money. So those grades don't have a lot of trouble fundraising. The problem with volunteerism and participation in fundraising happens in K through 12. And this field trip money didn't address 6 through 12. And so if we were to ever down the road, when the state is more
Generous.
Thank you. And if we do want to one day talk about field trips, I would really ask us to not forget the other schools that have such a harder time fundraising for their students. So that's pretty much my thoughts on the matter. So I will support this.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion? Those in favor of the amendment? That's unanimous. Thank you. Any further amendments? Wendy? Can I interrupt for just a moment? I just want, where are we at, Anthony?
Sure.
Total.
We've had 4 amendments so far, 94,886, a 28,966, a 20,000, and a 15,000. So all those together, adjustments dollar-wise to the budget are reductions in the amount of $158,852. And the 259 is now at a 234 with those changes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your indulgence.
Oh, sure. I'll ask for a little bit of latitude on this. I'd like to propose a motion to amend the budget by reducing the budget, by actually increasing the revenue line in the capital, BZZ 26846, of $100,000 to close that gap and offset a .15.
So moved. I'll second.
That a
give it to
motion?
Joe.
Motion, second.
And I'd like to speak to that motion.
Absolutely.
Is that the correct way to do it, Mr. Giovanni? To make it, is that the correct path to increase that revenue line in order to get rid of that $100,000.
Correct.
Okay, so I want to make sure I was clear on that. Thank you. I was doing it backwards in my head, so I wanted to get there. With regards to the motion itself, I can certainly appreciate the intent. I can appreciate the intent of not wanting to, use that account and wean ourselves off of that account, but unfortunately, we've got, we're cutting teachers, we're weaning ourselves off of possible, who knows what is going to happen with the internal service fund. We're getting hit from all directions, and I don't think this is the year to do it. And that's how I feel about it. I also feel that eventually we can always come back and take a look at that. But we can't take all of this on and all of these practical changes that we're doing in our budget all in one budget season in this type of climate, because we still have a long way to go.
JT?
So what I would say, I would not support that, in part because we've tried this for a year. We kicked it down for this year. I look at the $100,000 as a foot in the door for us to start to take on this fiscal responsibility. The total capital, when we look at the capital 5-year plan here, we're looking at trying to get ourselves into a place where we can plan for our facilities, for technology, for large capital expenditures, and start to take that on within our operating budget. So I look at the, $100,000 here in the context of a $322,000 request for capital, and it starts to just get us there. One of the pieces I look at is we're always judged by last year's budget. And if we're always going to be judged by last year's budget, then we're always going to be stuck with this, and we're never going to be able to make that one little step. And I won't support it because I think we have to make that step, and I'd like to see us try this year to make that first step to try to actually take this on in the operating budget. Look, I know it's not a small piece, but it's not all of that piece for capital.
Joe?
The capital reserve account is a wonderful thing that we have the opportunity to be available to us. And we use it for a lot of good purposes. But in this fiscal climate, I believe the $100,000 back out of there will help with this budget. It will help with the town's budget. And the other thing we need to remember, I don't know the last year since I've been in this town that we have not had some type of end-of-year balance that could eventually be moved in there. Granted, we might be a year, we'll be 2 years out from when we could have access to the budget we're discussing. If we have it, we are fiscally responsible in this town, and that's why we have had funds left over at the end of the year to move over there. And for most years that I've been around in this town, the town council has been gracious enough to do that. This year, they're asking us to reverse, and we're going to. In addition to this, also remember, if we have some very unusual event in our schools that is a significant capital outlay, such as just oil tank, $450,000, I have been on the council and the Board of Ed, and I know that this town is there for the schools. They're not gonna turn around and say, you're not gonna have heat, or you're not gonna have oil for your heat, because we're not gonna help you out. There are other avenues if we run into a serious problem, and some of it I brought up the other night. There's no reason we should be paying for a $450,000 oil tank when we can ask the town to bond it. Those type of unusual, super large expenses, there are other avenues in this community. The capital reserve helps with those, what we see here. So I think it's important that we use it when we have it, and if we don't have it, there is another avenue there. And I think it's important that we step up across the board this year in a very difficult time in the state of Connecticut.
Okay. Bill, Wendy?
I need a clarification. I'm not the brightest on finances, okay? This amendment would do what? Take money out of the budget?
It does. It ultimately.
Take 100,000 out,
That's correct.
which would mean the budget,
Because what we're doing
Right.
is we're evening out our capital reserve at this point. Where right now, we have a request to use $322,000 out of our capital reserve, or spend $322, and pull 222 out of the account, leaving us with a $100,000 shift in our operational budget that
Okay.
we're absorbing. Is that fair to say?
That's as it stands right now.
As it stands right now. I'm looking to bring it back up, where there's an automatic $100,000 off of our budget. It still uses the collateral against the capital reserve, in which is a reoccurring fund in which, granted, set aside any anomaly, like the motion to rescind, that we replenish. So for me, it's a line item adjustment that wasn't people and it wasn't programs.
Okay, can I ask, keep going, ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. I have this fantasy that, really, I do, no, not.
We're on
really.
TV.
No, that like when we
What
pass a
page is
budget.
that on your
I
budget?
don't know, it's probably, that when we pass a budget here, it goes right to the folks in town to vote on it. That's not reality, okay? And I've been here 41 years, and every year, it seems when the board sends over a budget, it gets hacked. I look at this 100,000 as a possibility. I think we should send the budget over the way we have it now. If we get hacked, that's something I would look at to take out. I don't want to take it out now, because then if we get hacked, we got to look at other stuff, and then you're going to talk about programs and staff. So that's, I kind of agree what you're saying, but I don't think I want to do it now. I'd rather see us say to the community, this is the best program, just like Joe talks about the turf field. This is the best for our kids, and we need to have this capital in there for the future. They may come back and hack us, and then we have to look at it differently. But that's my feeling. Okay? Thank you.
Wendy?
I'll only take the floor the last time on this because I don't want to, swing. To that point, I guess that's where the difference lies. I think that we have an obligation as elected officials to look at this budget and do the best we can. I know there's other processes involved. It's a long road, but I just don't send anything over to send it over. I'm not comfortable with that, and that's number one. Number two, with regards to why are we doing this now, I guess my question would be, why should we not be approaching weaning ourselves out of that fund, is last year we used the same amount of money and there was no conversation over weaning ourselves off that fund in a much more healthier fiscal climate. Now we're being faced with a $2 million shortfall from the state. We're being asked to cut staff. We are doing that. We're working with the town to find every nickel, and that money is there. So I wrestle with the fact of going back to the town and not saying that it was even on the table, because it is there. So that's, I guess, how I look at it.
Can I say anything?
Sure.
Okay. The only thing, and I appreciate your expertise of this. I mean,
Well, I'm not an expert.
No, you are. You've taught me a lot about this, so I appreciate that. The only thing I look at is, I look at this budget at 2.34, and I look at all the budgets around us, okay?
They're double.
Said it.
Yeah, they're double. And the other thing, if you read it, all these superintendents were trying to put back what was cut last year. Josh didn't put that back. So I look at this budget as lean, and I feel real comfortable sending it to the council. Just like you said, we're responsible. And I think as an elected official, I'm responsible also to make sure we have the best program. I don't think taking $100,000 now is being responsible with a 2.35 increase. If it was 3.5, I'd be right there with you. That's just my feeling.
I just like to weigh in myself. I've been in front of the Town Council, Board of Finance several times this year, presenting our 5-year plan. And in our 5-year plan, we have $1 million that we know. Now, these are knowns. These aren't the surprises. These are knowns that we will have to do, everything from boilers to safety issues to things like that. And we just, understandably, 193,000 was moved to the town. The balance so my concern is this: we're in uncharted state territories now as far as grants, ECS monies, and things of that nature. So I am reluctant to take another 100,000 out of the capital reserve and request that in this budget. because we do know that we have the big-ticket items, and although bonding is and a very viable one, but that you're paying interest on bonds. If we pay it out of our capital reserve, we have no bonds, we're not paying interest. So I'd be very, very reluctant to add to that. Joe?
My position is that if we, as a Board of Education here, make some difficult decisions, which they are tonight, because we are elected to do that, and we show the Town Council and the Board of Finance that we have gotten this budget tight, we can operate these schools as efficiently with as many programs and equipment as we can, yet we know that we had to make some sacrifices. I have no problem being before that council and saying, we have gotten this budget down to where it's a minimal. And I made a comment to someone last night, an administrator, saying that returning back here after all these years, I have a better appreciation and understanding of what it takes to educate our students and what our responsibilities here on the Board of Education are. And they're much more than they were 7 or 8 years ago when I sat here last time. And I am in awe of what it takes to educate one student in this school with our regulations, our mandates from the state and the federal, and we do it. And we consider that, council, we have accomplished this with certain cuts. It's not easy, but this is where we are, and I think we earn the respect of the council when we do that. If we take a budget just as the original amount is and send it over to them, I can guarantee you I have a good understanding as to what they'll do to us. And so if we step up and be responsible, I think we put the council in a more difficult spot to do anything other than pass what we asked them to pass. With that, I will finish on this issue.
No, I agree with you, but I feel that adding to the capital reserve, I mean decreasing more from it, knowing that we have other things in the future, that would, to me, would be irresponsible. So it's a difference of opinion.
Absolutely.
That's okay. All right, any further comments? Those in favor?
What's the motion? Can you please repeat?
Can
Can
we,
Bill,
can we,
you're not voting?
I was voting.
No.
Okay.
Oh, you're voting, you're voting it?
Yeah.
can you reread the motion, please, Stephanie?
Say wrong,
The motion is to increase the superintendent's budget by $100,000 by reducing the revenue line for capital reserve, is that?
By
Right,
increasing.
other way
So
around.
decreasing the budget by increasing the capital reserve.
That's correct.
I'll get it back tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank
Is
you.
Sorry,
everybody
Stephanie.
clear on what we're voting on?
Yes.
Okay, let's do those in favor. Okay, and those opposed. Okay, motion fails. Any other amendments? Angie?
Page 70. I would like to make an amendment to reduce the superintendent's proposed budget, line BZ 25847, object 57500, Chromebook refresh by $40,000.
I'm sorry, 5.7, I'm sorry?
57500,
BZZ
Found it.
25847.
third line down,
Yep.
by $40,000.
Second.
Second, oh, sorry.
Should I speak to that?
Yep.
I'm not saying Chromebooks aren't important. I'm not saying Chromebooks aren't necessary for education, because I think they are. However, I think in this budget cycle, $80,000 is a lot, and we're having $30,000 for the next 3 years. I think we can lop that in half, and I think we can add that $10,000 on the next 3 years with minimal impact. We also have gotten, since last budget cycle, 462 new Chromebooks to the district. So I understand this is a refresh, not all of these are working, but I know when we spoke to Mr. Shagru, he said all the ones at the high school were in working order. So that's nearly 25% of our Chromebooks in the last year are brand new. So I think we can push off maybe some of that refresh. That still gets them almost 160 plus whatever the schools are purchasing. I know the high school had 136, and I don't know how many in the other schools, but I think we can do this, reducing the budget and have very, very, very minimal impact on programs. And then if we have balance at the end of the year or surplus, we can always look back at it and add some more back in like we've done previously.
Any further discussion?
Jen?
Joe? Joe and then JT.
I have to agree with Ms. Chastain's comments. We're looking at total here, I know I've asked this throughout the last several nights, of a purchase of approximately 435 additional Chromebooks. We're now learning about Chromebook students, 60%. And they're important, and the high school has asked for theirs, and I'd like to leave theirs alone. We understand they're being used and requested extensively. I know they are throughout in the high school. The advancements in moving into Chromebooks for the modernization and up-to-date information is important. However, this is a lot of technology expense in 1 year. Thank you.
JT and Wendy?
I'm paraphrasing here, so I apologize, Mr. Shagru. But I remember hearing, and I appreciate that, Joe, too, that, the high school, Mr. Shagru made a pretty compelling argument that he believed that Chromebooks were almost more important than a pencil. And I look at the value we receive for these laptops, or, these Chromebooks. It wasn't far ago, we were spending $2,000 for laptops. And that $80,000 was barely a drop in the bucket. And I remember working on the technology committee in district, and there were years that there was no capital at all for technology, and we almost wondered our existence, our very existence as a technology committee. Why do we exist if we're not even going to fund technology from a capital perspective? And I had a brief conversation with Roberta the other day about this, and she gave me some insight that I think is helpful here too. And that's, why do we see the Chromebooks living in the high school budget within departments, right? We see, English department, science department, and with the carts and whatnot too. So looking at that, I said, well, why do we have Chromebooks here as well? So a little education for me was, hey, the idea here is the schools should be articulating within their budget what they need, and that being Chromebooks, and the refresh will be to kind of pick up the ones when those are starting to fall away. Now, I know we talked at some length last night about what, the Lenovo ones, and, we're only talking about a smaller number, not necessarily all of these, but at some point we need to refresh. And that, kind of seeing that parallel structure where the schools are articulating what technology they need, and technology is there to support, and when you have failures and whatnot too. So I can support the $80,000, and I would not support a cut of $40,000. Again, trying to fund capital and trying to fund that refresh line. Now, if it was smart boards, that might be a different story for me, but I see Chromebooks as being a pretty high value project.
Okay, Wendy, then Tammy?
Thank you.
I'll support the motion. I think that just for me personally, we can't have it all. We have to kind of take a look at this and see where there is some give. We are cutting positions here.
7.
And I'm looking at a memorandum to the Board of Education. We're already in a fiscal season in which we have $80,000 out of capital reserve for Chromebook refresh. We have it. We did it. So it's not like we're not doing it, and I think that there's a way around it. So I'm looking at some of these larger components, and the technology is absolutely vital to the system, but we're hearing about the Chromebooks at the high school. We're trying to hold on to this. We're in a budget cycle in which we just had an $80,000 refresh out of the last 322 from the capital reserve, and I don't think that it would be terrible to take that amount and reduce it by $40,000. It's not as if in the days of woe when we didn't have anything, we've gone into the cycle of putting that in there. I'm just saying slow down the request. So I would support it.
Tammy?
I appreciate what you guys are saying regarding feeling a need to reduce the budget. I personally don't think this is a way to get there. I won't support this because I see what these kids are being asked to do in the lower grades with these computers, and I think that there's a lot of kids in the district who do not have the ability to use technology at home to be able to do some of these things. the amount of Chromebook use that's happening in the lower schools, specifically at Sarah Noble and Scotticoke, it's happening a lot. And as an example, my daughter's doing a project. She has a Chromebook. My husband and I bought her one. She has had to bring her Chromebook in because there haven't been enough that are in working order for her whole class to be able to use them. So she has asked if she can please bring hers in to free up one. And, you know, I think these kids need to enter high school knowing how to use the Chromebooks and the resources on the Chromebook. So if they need these Chromebooks, if we need to refresh what we currently have, I think that we owe it to our students to be able to provide them. So I can't support the reduction.
Okay, and myself. The dynamics of education has changed rapidly, very, very rapidly within the last 10 years. Chromebooks are more than just a tool. They're your textbooks. They foster your creativity. They're mobile. They're available for everybody. This is the direction that education is going, both at the secondary, elementary, and even at the collegiate level, and in the employment world today. We can't go into a place of business today, very rarely, that you have to be computer literate. I mean, it's just one of those things today. I guess what I'm trying to say is, this isn't our dad's Oldsmobile anymore, okay? This is something that we can resist it as much as we want, but it's not going away. I say that we should embrace it. And if we're going to do it, let's do it to our best of our ability. As for our budget, at what do we have with the present? 2.34, I would consider a very good budget in this climate compared to the districts around us that are coming in at 4.5%, 9%, and things like that. I'd say that is responsible. I am confident with it. I don't want to get behind the 8 ball with technology, because that's a heck of a thing to start getting into. But that's myself. Angie?
I think Brian had his hand up first.
Oh, Ryan, thank you.
Yeah, you know, I go back to the days when I didn't have as much technology, when I had like 1 or 2 computers in my classroom. And now every single student has a computer, and I think they need one. When the computers go down, when the internet goes down, it's a panic, because that technology is really driving the classroom these days. And I really think our students need to have access to as much to these Chromebooks. I won't support cutting that line. I support cutting some other lines, but not the
Angie?
I just wanted to speak to a couple of things that we had said. First of all, other districts around us are not New Milford. Other districts around us haven't closed a school. Other districts around us aren't necessarily cutting 7 positions. We have to make hard choices. We're not taking anything away from the students. They have all of the Chromebooks they still have. 25% of those Chromebooks are new within the last year, so it's not like they're not in working order. And I'm not asking us to take them away. I'm asking us to budget and give $40,000 this year, $40,000 for the next 3 years, instead of $80,000 this year and $30,000 for the next 3 years. I don't see why we have to be so disproportionate this year when we're already in a $1.7 million reduction for this school year. God only knows what next year's gonna bring. So I think I'm just asking us to be fiscally responsible, and this is not taking anything away from the students at all. And I also wanna point out, Chromebooks are great, but nobody in business uses a Chromebook. They use a computer. So I understand what you're saying, but that's not apples to apples comparison, in my opinion. And that's all I'm gonna say about it.
Eileen?
Okay. My first feeling is, I don't care what other towns are doing, because we have to get this budget past our town. Big deal, you know, nobody's gonna be impressed with Ridgefield is doing such and such. It's us, and we're doing a lot of cutting already, and if I had my druthers, I would cut the textbook line and go with the Chromebooks and give the kids the skills that they need to enter the job market, 21st century, move through the school system. So I would not support this cutting of the Chromebooks.
Joe?
I made a mistake earlier, and I apologize for that. 355 Chromebooks, technology, 136 to high school, that's 491 Chromebooks that we're looking for this year. That's a lot. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Those in favor? And opposed? And thank you. Okay, any further amendments to be proposed? Wendy?
Okay, let's roll this one out. Okay, let's take a look at, I had the page, but I don't have it in my head, so I'll give it to you. I'm looking at, in Scotticoke, BLD 24943, in the amount of $9,000. I'll make an amendment to reduce the budget by $9,000, and those are the desks that are being asked for at Scotticoke. And I'd like to speak to that motion. Did I get a second?
You got a second, so,
What was the number again?
It's in Scotticoke.
It's on
Yeah.
page 25.
Thank you.
25?
It is on page 25.
In the middle there.
What page?
Page 25.
yep.
Okay, so my rationale here is, again, some of it is just a difference of opinion. The explanation is that they can do wonderful things, and I believe that they will. But this is want versus need. This is a clear example of that. And I do think that we don't need these. It'd be great to have them. But again, we're cutting staff, and we're not looking at some of these other areas that I think that we should be looking at. I think that I would be the first one and be happy to make a motion that if there were a way to get those and hear a little bit more information at another time, whether it be through some other a way of funding that, I would do that. But I can't support putting in desks that we don't technically need. They would enhance, but we don't need them. And I didn't hear about them last year. They're new to this budget, and I'm not in favor of adding things to this budget that I don't have a real argument for.
I just wanted a clarification on the justification in the first place for these.
That's my question.
In the budget?
So that line are standing desks and also kidney-shaped tables. And the kidney-shaped tables are for the purposes of conferring between teachers and students so that we can differentiate within the classroom. Standing desks also serve purposes not only for special ed students, but also our regular ed populations across the teams. And the rationale is to give 3 of those tables per team, which would take care of the whole school so that students have access, and that's one other method in which the teachers could differentiate for environment within the classroom. These are not your typical desks. These are
Right.
the standing adjustables
Right.
along with the tables.
Quick question to follow up on that. Are any of these desks on anybody's IEP?
The desks, it's not specifically written in IEPs, but the type of environment, that could be something that could be justified written in an IEP.
Can I just speak to that, too?
Absolutely.
It doesn't
I guess that's who I
specifically
should have
say,
asked.
Standing desks
Sorry.
or kidney-shaped tables, but what we do refer to environmentally on the accommodations page is flexible grouping. So if you're working in small group, large group, you're differentiating instruction, like Dr. Longo said, it gives you that opportunity in your classroom. As far as the standing desks, research has found that kids with attentional issues, movement issues, sensory, not perform better, but they do find that they can sustain attention longer in the classroom. It could be for a variety of reasons. I know that Mrs. Bilko has a few in her building, and we're, building capacity, building the numbers throughout the district, but it's not written into an IEP as a standing desk.
Okay, thank you. Absolutely.
The 9,000 is for the kidney desks and the stand-up, or these just, the 9,000 is just for the stand-ups? Because
It's for both.
It
So
is.
a portion of that amount is for 30 standing desks that are adjustable. And then the kidney-shaped tables are, I could look up that number to see how many exactly those are.
And what do those serve the purpose for, the kidney
So you
shape?
can fit about 4 students, and they're curved so that the teacher could be on the opposite end.
see.
And that would be to work with a group of students while the co-teacher in the classroom is working with the rest of the group, either at the back whiteboard or on the smart board.
Thank you.
Angie, then Wendy?
So we have tables at Scotticoke now that we could do small groups at, is that not correct?
In 6th grade, most of our desks, unfortunately, have come over from Pettibone. So one of the things when I was building my budget that I ended up taking out, because I thought that this was more of a need, was actual desks that are very similar to what the high school has. That was a thought, but in really looking at what's best for all students in the school, I decided to go this route because I thought that we would be able to support the needs of students going this route. But we actually have desks, we have 6th and 7th graders that are sitting at desks where their knees are hitting the top and they're actually too small. So that's a need, but
Okay, but
so
that's
we
really
can
doesn't-
stagger desks to form different groups, but some classrooms have the regular desks similar to the high school, and some have the smaller desks. from
Okay,
that.
maybe I didn't ask my question clearly. Do we have tables at Scotticoke that students can use?
We have tables, but we don't have enough tables to be able to support all the needs of our students.
But we have
So some
tables
of- we do
that
have
they,
some
that they
tables,
currently
yes.
use? Okay.
So
And
the
then,
request was in addition to what we already
Right.
have in classrooms.
okay, thank you. And then just to follow up to that, so if one of these items were written into an IEP, wouldn't that come out of your budget?
Not necessarily, it could come out of a school-based budget supply line. And it could be written into an IEP.
But we currently don't have any that are.
Currently, we do not.
Thank you.
Wendy?
That was my question. There was a comment that alluded to the fact that it possibly was tied to an IEP, which takes us in a different direction. And that is not the case.
Not right this minute.
Okay, thank you. I just want to be that on the record.
JP?
Just to follow up on that and then kind of take it another way. I also look at that as, tier 3, tier 2 accommodation for students for Serbia. I mean, if we can get kids, we might actually have kids that they've got some movement and they're then not identified, so we see kids if they just had a little more movement. We ask kids for so many hours of the day to sit and to sit still and to be quiet. And we know our elementary students are every student, right, across the district. They need some movement. And I have seen these in practice in middle schools, and it's really amazing to watch kids have a little bit more movement, and there's much more attention to that. So I can support it. Mike, to go down that road though, and Anthony, I'm gonna call him out here. The student allotment, I'm particularly fascinated with the student allotment this budget season. I think you found that out. And I look at the student allotment for Scotticoke, and that's $354.80 per student in Scotticoke, right?
Correct.
Is this 9,000 apportioned from that allotment?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and to that point, what I'm just gonna try to say is, and I'll say it again, I think we owe it to our district administrators to pick how they are going to run their schools, and to ask us for these funds, and decide how they're going to run their schools. It's our job to be sure the schools are run well, and it's not our job to run the school and to say, here's how it should be. So I will end with that, and thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
I just want to, piggyback a little bit what Dr. Longo said about the differentiated learning and the co-teaching. Because co-teaching is a very unique method. And I know we switched about 2 years ago, started doing that. And it takes some differentiation in the classroom. And the kidney tables, shaped tables, actually, kind of gives them a little corner. It's not like a square where this, and I've seen co-teaching work very well when there is the environment set up for it. Okay, and there's a lot of, and I'm not even going to talk about the rising desk because, research has shown that that's very important, for, especially with kids who are hyperactive. So, I know you're saying, yeah, they're tables, but there's a purpose for it. It's not just a table. It's part of a learning environment. It's a part of helping our kids learn better. And especially in the co-teaching model, I think it's you know, it's really critical to have those in the classroom.
Yes, well, I agree with JT. We do ask our administrators, you know, what do you need? And they tell us, and then we say, no. So they have a better view of what's going on in their schools, what their needs are, and how to best educate our students. That's all I want to say there. Any further comment? Discussion? Those in favor of the motion? Those opposed? Thank you. Any further amendments? Yes.
I just have a question, maybe
Sure.
I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but I heard some comments, maybe I'll take it from another, are there any other amendments? Is there any other adjustments coming forward?
I have none.
Okay.
Is that,
That's it?
oh,
That was my question.
oh, I can only answer for myself.
No, but I had heard some comments during some of the other commentary. Well, I would take it, I would look at this line item.
Oh,
Just
I
wondering
hear
if-
what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
If anybody
Oh,
is going to offer up an
any,
amendment.
any further amendments? Any other lines? Any? Okay, Anthony, would you be kind enough to, Mr. Giovanni, sorry, my mistake. If you would read back where the budget is with the reductions and the percentage.
Sure. Okay, then the proposed motion, I guess, for the board adopted budget would be, the total budget amount would be 64,278,000.
Let's go there again. 64 million.
Yep, 64,
I'm sorry?
yes, 64,
Comma.
Yep.
278,
Comma.
comma, 610.
Thank you. Sorry.
64,278?
Yes.
Good, it's not just me.
That's the amended.
That's the amendment that would reflect a 2.34% increase.
Go ahead.
Could we just itemize what those current reductions are?
Absolutely.
Sure. I'll read them back. That is a reduction of 94,886 to the workers' compensation line. A reduction of 28,966 to the line for property liability insurance. A reduction of $20,000 to the professional services line on page 68. This is related to the strategic plan. A reduction in the amount of $15,000 for field trips on page 39. The grand total of the adjustments is $158,852 that's being reduced.
158,852.
Correct.
And again, I'll ask, are there any other proposed amendments? Okay. If that's the case, I need a motion to approve the superintendent's proposed 2018-2019 budget as amended in the amount of $64,278,610.
So moved.
670.
$670.
670? I had 610.
You
Are you sure?
Said 610. Said 610.
Oh, it's not me.
It is 670. If I said 610, I
Okay.
apologize.
Okay, thank you. We'll take it out of your pay.
$60.
So Tammy seconded. Tammy made the motion, then who
I'll
seconded?
second.
You did. Thank you.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Out of that motion, 123,000 was an insurance adjustment
And change, yes.
offered to this board.
Correct.
That means that roughly this seated body come up with $30,000, what did we come up with?
35.
Out of $62 million.
64.
Thank you. I think we could have done better. I think that nobody is here to slash this budget, and after 17 years, I'm well aware of the cycle involved with the budget, but I think we could have done a little bit better on sharpening our pencils. And it's not a remark against any one person, it's a difference of opinion, but I won't support the budget, sadly.
Angie?
I have to concur with Wendy. I think we definitely have some things in here we could take out, and I don't think by sending it over saying, oh, well, we'll take that after they make their cut, I don't think that's the fiscally responsible thing to do. I think we need to look at New Milford and not worry about what other towns are doing. I think we, really work hard to retain programs, but in a year where we cut 7 positions, I mean, really 9 we took out, but, 7 actual cuts. I don't think that's a year to have some of the things we have in here, and I will not be supporting this budget.
Bill?
Yeah, I think we have been fiscally responsible. I mean, I feel very confident that this is the budget needed to go forward. I'm not saying that we couldn't take more, but I don't know if we should. I look at that $4 million turf field and think of what we've given our athletes in this community, and the top notch, like Joe said, top notch. And I just think the students in the community need the same thing, and I think 2.34 is not an absurd increase. I think we are physically responsible. I think to cut just to say we can cut is irresponsible. So I just take it from a different lens on how I look at this.
Thank you. Joe, then
I
Tammy.
believe Tammy had her
and-
hand up first.
It's okay. Joe, Tammy, JT.
Here we go. The turf fields were $3.2 million, of which it was established initially that not a single dollar come from taxpayers. It was to come out of waste management and a variety of sources. The subsequent mayor decided to bond it, so we have a cost associated with it, not because of what the turf committee wanted, because we wanted no impact on the community. That $3.2 million has made this school a national recognition and has nothing to do with this town's use of monies, other than a small amount of money to manage the bond. That said, I think Ms. Fallenbach said it well. $64,278,670, and all we could cut is $35,000. I appreciate and understand every administrator that came before this board and requested certain things. They do that, they want as much as they can, and they have been fiscally responsible. I give credit to every one of our administrators come forward. This is at the very least of what we need, and we want a few extra. We, as a Board of Education, have a different role. We are here for the taxpayers of this community, and every dollar we increase this budget is an increase to our taxes in this community at a difficult time. We are not Ridgefield. I used to live there. This is New Milford. It is a different category. Every ounce that we increase this budget is a significant impact on people who pay taxes in this community. And the fact that we could only come up with $35,000 is unfortunate, because the amendments that my colleagues and I put forward would have only reduced the budget by $300,000. We are not looking to slash and burn, but we're looking to say to this community, we have gotten this lean, and we have not done that tonight. Thank you.
Tammy?
Okay, I disagree with coming from the standpoint of we're only cutting $35,000. I think that we are being very fiscally responsible. I think that the superintendent has provided us with a fiscally responsible budget with things that were already taken out of the budget that probably should have been in there, with positions that we needed but were not put in the budget because of the crisis that we're currently in, that we would have had to reduce had that not been done. So I think we need to take that into consideration. We've sat here for 3 days and heard about how we would like to do this, but we are not going to do that this year. We would have liked to have done this, but we'll do that in the future. I think we owe it to our students in this district to move forward with a budget that is going to provide to them the services and the equipment and the furniture and the programs that they need to thrive. And so I will support this. I think it is fiscally responsible. I think that we are being a responsible town when you consider what's happening around the state, and that is how I feel.
Thank you. JT?
I want to thank everyone, at the table. I appreciate and respect the opinions at this table, and I really do think we've got, a fantastic board that listens to each other, and we hear each other, and we respect each other. And I think, and I respect everybody at this table, there's no doubt. And I hope I expressed that to you. I have to say, too, I look at this budget, and this is an enormously transparent document. Over the past few years, these documents have become more transparent, I believe, and, members of our community can dig into this. I gotta tell you, I regret that there's not a single member of the public that wants to speak to this. We've been here for 4 nights. Not a single member of the public wants to come out and speak to any of this and to learn this. And the reality is, we have line item control of this budget. Not a single person after this will have line item control. It will go to town council. It will go to Board of Finance. So I disagree there, Joe. We are not a Board of Finance. There are some districts that are both a Board of Education and a Board of Finance. We are not that fiscal body. We are a Board of Education. Have we done our due diligence? I do believe we have. But we are not the single body that will sit on this budget. And this will not just be our budget. It is the town's budget, and it is the taxpayers' budget. And it is part of the process. So I see this as the first step there in helping to educate the community as to what's in this budget. And I gotta say, not seeing any public to speak about this, that gets me really, really concerned. Have we done our job as a board to communicate this? And I think we've got to go out and we have to stand and say, this is our budget. This is the budget we are putting forth to the taxpayers. And we ask them, because at the end of the day, it is their budget. It is not our budget. Thank you.
Any further comment? Discussion, I should say? Or comments? Okay.
Are you opening it up for others to speak again, or just?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, I mean.
I just have to say, I disagree. I absolutely think that it's very difficult to sit there and say that we've done our job and look at all of these pages and say you can't find another cut. I disagree with that. I know we can. We do it every month at operations. We check those line items. We ask those questions, and I know we can. Nobody came in here, I think, as this board, no one wants to come in here and say, how can we get it to this point or this point? I don't see that at this board. We are a
Yeah,
board, and I defend each and every one of you for that. I defend the administrators for bringing their thoughts together, but at the end of the day, I still think that we do have a job. It's a tough job, and we can't say that we're going to wean ourselves off the capital reserve, but we're going to absorb something in the internal service fund. We're going to take salary reductions. We can't do it all in one budget cycle. And I just, I think that I would have liked to seen a little bit leaner send-off to the town council, because I know on the town side, I've been over there with Mr. Lawson on several occasions, they're struggling too. And we need to get in the game and show them that we're right along with the pain. And I just think we could have done a little bit better, that's all.
Mr. Lawson, one last comment.
Sure.
I will agree with you on something, JT, I agree 100%. It is tragic that the community doesn't come out and speak on this budget. There's a lot of apathy in this community. Our off-major election voter turnouts are minimal. It's a handful of people in this community that vote on the town and the school budget. A handful compared to our population. It's staggering, and that is unfortunate and tragic. And I don't know the answer to it. put this out there, everybody in the community knows it. I think every student knows it, through their teachers and their administrators. This is the time of year. And perhaps if this community was out here and spoke more, it might even change the opinions of some of us.
Good point.
So I agree with you there. Although I do think our responsibility as a Board of Ed is to support this wonderful school system. But we are endearing to the taxpayers. That is our responsibility, just as council and Board of Finance is. We all have that responsibility, but I agree with you there.
I'd like to thank everybody. Thank you very much for your input.
And
on
all of the
these.
staff and
I'm
everybody
getting
involved.
there.
in all of
I'm
that.
getting to that. Thank you, everybody. Particularly those of you that had to make presentations to, well, rather a tough group. We do appreciate you coming out on these many evenings. At that point,
We need to vote. Everybody's saying we need to vote, so I'm sorry to say.
At that point, I'll reread the motion, and that is to approve the superintendent's proposed 2018-19 budget as amended in the amount of $64,278,670. Okay. All those in favor? And opposed? Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. I'll give it to
8,
Bill.
10, 12? But did I get a second
I'll
as
second
well? Any discussion? Those in favor? And opposed?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
You're opposing us?